Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to, first of all, say thank you for joining our Acumatica Lunch and Learn series. And this month, for September, we're going to be talking about Acumatica Toolbox for reporting, and how these tools can transform your business, give you more options, and hopefully bring your business to a new level. Today's presentation will be myself going through just a couple of slides here. Not going to have to see PowerPoint for very long. And uh, and then Stacey Pohl is going to take over and be actually in the application and showing you some of these options that are available. With that in mind, again, Acumatica is one of the fastest growing cloud ERP systems in the market. True born in the cloud solution. A lot of people wonder what I mean by that because there's a lot of cloud solutions, but there are a lot of there's a lot of solutions that run in the cloud, but they weren't really born in the cloud, and a lot of that has to do with the development platform and when that product came on the market. So Acumatica came in around 2010, so that was right around the time that everybody was switching to smartphones and tablets and things of that nature. So with that being said, this particular lunch and learn is going to be centered around GIs, which are generic inquiries, dashboards, the financial report writer, and we are also going to be showing you an Excel-based tool that is very popular with Acumatica called Alexio. And we're not going to get into a lot of detail on that, but we are going to show it, and you'll be able to see it, operating, in a couple of different scenarios that Stacey has set up. That being said, next slide. We're going to pretty much be going for the full hour from 1 o'clock, and then we will have an opportunity to wrap up and ask any questions, and then we'll close out the session from there. So look forward to some good questions from everyone out there, and like I said, thank you again for joining the Cal Business Solutions Lunch and Learn series on Acumatica. Stacey, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm very excited today to take you through the different reporting tools that Acumatica has to offer with their platform. We're just going to jump in and get right started here. I'm going to sign in. What you can expect today? George did kind of take us through a quick agenda. I am going to be covering the generic inquiry tool, where we're going to be taking a dive into how users and companies can personalize the different inquiries throughout the system. We're going to take a deep dive into dashboards and look at how a dashboard can really tell the story for someone, a particular role within your organization, how we can organize our dashboards and how we can really utilize those to its fullest potential. And then we're going to also look at some out-of-the-box reports inside of Acumatica that are built through its own native report designer, and some of the functionality that Acumatica offers within those reports. We'll look at a profit and loss that includes some budgeting information. And then we're going to look at Velixo, which is an Excel-based reporting tool that connects to the Acumatica database. This reporting tool can be used for financial as well as any type of operational reporting. All right, so let's get started here. So because we have attendees that are crossing all sorts of different industries, we are going to be working under the premise of an accounts payable clerk, and in our payables department, seeing that every company, regardless, right, of what industry you're in, we all have that accounts payable function and role within the organization. So I think this will be applicable to most anyone here that's on the call today. So I logged into Acumatica, and when I logged in, what we're seeing here is my home page that is set to the AP clerk dashboard. If you've been on any of our other Lunch and Learn sessions or have done some of your own research on Acumatica, you'll know that the home page is personalizable to the user. So because I'm in that AP clerk role, I want my AP clerk dashboard to open up as soon as I log into the system to kind of give me all the information that I need about what's going on in the system that pertains to my role here within the organization, the AP clerk. So some things that we've done here with this dashboard is we've taken some time to kind of organize the dashboards into sections. So if you look, you'll see that we have our AP document section where I have some widgets that are already designed that revolve around the different AP documents, bills, things to approve, documents to release here within the module. Over to the right, we have our section that we organize that aggregates some widgets across different payment-related data. So I've got some data that's telling me what payments should be processed that are already started, what needs to be paid. Do I have any discounts for invoices that I can take advantage of when I make those payments? And then also some cash requirements that are going to be needed for me to be able to process payments within the next 7 days. So these are kind of all of our payment related widgets. Then we get down into some balance related information where we're looking at some agings and some trends. So Acumatica really offers a really great way, again, to kind of organize all these widgets, because there's a lot going on here in this dashboard, into kind of these relatable sections. Now you'll notice Acumatica does offer a vast array of options when it comes to displaying data in the form of these widgets. We can have these KPI kind of scorecard type widgets. There's a variety of charts, pie charts, bar charts that we can set up. I'm going to take you through how we can actually add a data table type widget here to our dashboard today. There are, again, a lot of different types of widgets that we can add to our dashboard that represents these different data elements here within the system. Along with adding widgets to kind of tell us what's going on with the data in the system, we are also able to add links that will open up screens within the Acumatica application. So going across the top here, we created some links to the most typical screens that an AP clerk would navigate to, in effort to allow my AP clerk to work strictly from this dashboard all day long. The goal was to design something where they really wouldn't ever have to leave this dashboard that they're working on. So as an example, if I have a bill that comes in, I need to enter, instead of having to navigate right over to where I'd enter my bills and adjustments on my dashboard, I can just click my enter bill link and it will actually open up the screen to allow me to put in that bill. So again, this dashboard is personalizable for you to add any links, again, to the kind of the most common screens that you're going to be working in here in the application. I'm going to go back over to my dashboard here. So that's a little bit more about, again, it's not just widgets displaying information, but links to screens within the system here. Now, any of these widgets that we're seeing here, it doesn't matter if it's a KPI, it doesn't, or a chart, all of these different widgets you can drill into to see the data that's behind this. So if I want to look at my documents, for example, that I have on hold, all I need to do is just click on that widget and it's going to pop open that screen that is showing me that unreleased document that I need to view. Right? So the data is at your fingertips. I have this designed so that my drill-ins, everything is always opening in a new tab. So again, my dashboard always stays open for me. I'm going to quickly take you through how easy it is to go ahead and actually add a new widget to the dashboard. A lot of times you see these dashboards already created, but you don't really get the opportunity to see how easy it is to actually add or create a new widget to the dashboard. So I am going to go into my design mode here by clicking my design button. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom to where I want to go ahead and I want to add a new widget. So I'm going to hit the add new widget button. And here's where you can get a flavor of the different types of widgets, right, that Acumatica allows you to add to the dashboard. So if I select chart, I can start building out a chart widget. Again, lots of different options for different charts. We have data tables. You can even embed a page. So maybe you have a link to a particular website that you want to display on your dashboard. You could actually embed that page here. You can do the KPIs, which were all those little rectangular boxes. The links were that was the example that I gave where we were drilling into some of those most common forms or screens that an AP clerk would want to navigate to. We can add pivot tables as widgets to our dashboards. You can even include tiles from Power BI that you may have built out externally. Okay. And then again, if you have built out wikis or you want to make use of some of the wiki documents inside of Acumatica, you could also include those. So you could see lots of options for different ways to display data on your dashboard. For this example that we're going to walk through of adding a new widget, I'm going to select a data table. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the next button. Now this data table that I'm going to be adding is an inquiry in the Acumatica system that is showing me all the tasks that I have open that I need to complete. So instead of me always having to monitor a separate inquiry screen showing me all my tasks, I can see that directly here on my dashboard by adding this. So I'm going to hit my lookup and I'm going to search for my tasks inquiry, which is right here. And I'm going to kind of start filtering or defining some of the settings that I want to personalize this task inquiry. So I want to just pull my open tasks. And I'm going to define how often I want to refresh this particular task widget. So one really powerful feature within the Acumatica dashboards is it does give you the ability to define how often you want each widget to refresh. So instead of having everything have to get refreshed all at once, right, which could be a lot of data that's constantly being refreshed, you can set a refresh rate for each particular widget so that while your dashboard is open, that widget will refresh based on the frequency selected. So I'm going to say I want to update my task widget every 15 minutes. That way, if someone assigns a new task to me, that widget will refresh and I'll see that on my dashboard. I can also control when I'm creating widgets, especially for a data table, how many records I want to display. This data table contains a lot of records, right? It could take up a lot of room on your dashboard, so you may want to set a record limit. So I'm going to have my widget automatically adjust, right, based on the number of records up to, I'll go with the default, the 30 record setting. And lastly, I'm going to come into my columns settings. These are all the different columns that are currently in my inquiry. I am not going to display all my columns. I'm only going to display the ones that I think are important for me to see so I don't clutter up my view here on my dashboard. So I'm going to stick with these 4 columns that you'll see in a minute. And I'm going to give my widget a name. I'm going to just call it my open task. And I'm going to say finish. Okay. So here's my task list, my inquiry, and I'm just going to kind of resize this right over here so that I could see everything in one view. I'm going to take this out of design mode. Okay. And now here is my inquiry of my task list, things that I need to do in the system that I can keep an eye on. Okay. Before I drill into that, I just want to show you that if I search for tasks, this is the inquiry, my open task. This is the inquiry right here that I just linked and added to my dashboard. So again, instead of having to have this open separately, I can now view that here. Right? And just like drilling into the widgets that we looked at previously, I can drill into the hyperlink directly from here, right? And it's going to open up that task that I need to tend to. So pretty cool. I hope I gave you a good flavor of, again, how easy it is to use the dashboard tool that's here in the system. And also, I hope you saw the benefit of what dashboards can offer to an individual within the organization. So I'm actually going to kind of shift gears now over to our next reporting tool, which is our generic inquiry. And I'm going to come up here to my favorite menu, and I'm going to select my bills and adjustments inquiry that I saved here. And let me close down my task list. So a generic inquiry is a tool that allows you to go ahead and query your database based on a certain set of data that you define. In this case, what we're looking at here is the accounts payable, bills, credit memos, debit memo type transactions here within the system. Now, within a generic inquiry, there's two categorizations of what I call personalizations that can be made to the generic inquiry. There are user personalizations, and then there are company personalizations. So I'm going to start by kind of taking you through how a user can personalize this inquiry that we're looking at here today. What I'm going to show you on this bills and adjustment inquiry applies to any inquiry throughout the system. So Acumatica has hundreds of out-of-the-box inquiries. You can even build your own. And again, as far as what I'm going to show you for personalizations here, the system works the same way regardless of the inquiry that you're on. Right. So first thing I want to kind of mention and take you through is how you can personalize what columns you're seeing here in your output grid. So Acumatica has what's called a column configurator. If you click on this in the upper left-hand corner on what looks like a little piece of paper, that opens up the column configurator. So the column configurator is broken down into two sections. On the left-hand side, we're looking at available columns, which means columns that we're not yet seeing or have not yet been added to our output grid. And then on the right-hand side, we're seeing all the selected columns or the columns that are already displaying in that grid. So if I am interested, for example, in taking out perhaps our currency column, because we only transact in one currency, why do I need to clutter up my view with a currency column? I can go ahead and I can select that, right? And I can take that out of my view and move it over to the available columns, right? So when I click OK, every time you make a change to that column configurator, you'll see that that column no longer exists if I removed it or if I added it, right? It would appear. So as another example, if I'm not using project accounting, there's no need for me to really see that project accounting field. So again, if I go to my column configurator and I shift that over, when this refreshes, you'll see that that column is no longer displayed. So this gives each individual user, right, the flexibility to be able to customize their view so that it only shows the information that's really important to them. Okay? Adding columns is really the same way. If I go to my column configurator, if I want to see my open document balance, because, hey, I want to see not just what the original amount of the document was, but how much is remaining, right, to be paid, I can shift that over to my selected columns. Okay. I can even control the order that that column is going to appear in the grid. When you add the column, it does go to the all the way to the right, which is your last column, but I can use my arrows, right, to kind of move my the position of that field or that column. So I'm going to click OK. Here's my open doc balance here, okay, and then you can see that the position is exactly where I placed it. Now, Acumatica does offer another nice, easy, flexible way to kind of reorder your columns if you wanted to. I can take these and I can just literally start dragging and dropping. So if I have all the columns already added and I just want to reorder, nice, quick way to do that by that drag and drop method there. So that's a little bit about how you can personalize from a user perspective. They can personalize the columns that they want to view in the order of the columns. Now I'm going to start taking you through some of the functionality here that we're looking at within the inquiry. So now that we have our layout just the way we want it, I can start working with the data that we're viewing here. And I'm going to show you how within a particular field, right, we can actually do some sorting. So if I click on one of those column headers, I can choose whether or not I want to sort ascending or descending. And then I also can apply a filter to just filter on a subset of the records that we're looking at here, right? So for example, if I just wanted to see my records for, we'll look at employee Maxwell Baker, on that column header, I can start typing Maxwell Baker's name, and you can see there's different matching criteria that I can select. This one, I'm just going to say, as long as the vendor name contains the word Maxwell, go ahead and filter on those records. Okay. So any of these columns that you're seeing here have both that sorting and that filtering mechanism. I'm just going to take my filter that I applied and I'm just going to drag it up, and that quickly removes my filter. Now, another way that you can look for data besides having to click on the column and search within a certain field or column, we also have this form search. Okay, so this form search is actually searching through different columns or columns that have been predefined to look for a subset of data. So if I type in again Maxwell Baker, it's going to be looking across multiple columns for that particular keyword. Now you do have control over what columns you want to search. Okay, I'm going to go just for a quick moment into the actual generic inquiry tool where you maintain the inquiry. And over here on my results grid, here there's this column called use in quick search. So you can define when you're using that form search, which fields you actually want the system to search through. So lots of flexibility in defining kind of those searchable fields here. So that is the form search. Whatever fields you got defined as searchable, you could just use the form search to put in a keyword to filter in on that particular subset of data. Okay. So that is another way users can use the generic inquiry to help them find the data that they're looking for. Now, if a user is always finding themselves searching on a certain piece of information, so maybe your user's coming in here and they're saying, hey, I want to see all of my AP transactions that are closed. So they're always coming in here and they're clicking on the status and they're selecting that closed status to look at their closed records. Okay, if you're always doing that, certainly filtering on the column header works for you, but Acumatica has a more efficient way of handling kind of those common searches that you're always using over and over and over again. I'm going to go ahead and select all my records. And what I'm going to show you next is how you can utilize what's called shared filters or memorized filters. So there's this little funnel icon here that I'm going to select. And instead of setting the filter for my status at the column level, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick my status. And I'm going to say I want to filter on transactions that are closed. And so I can go ahead and I can save that, and I can give this shared or memorized filter a name. I'm just going to call it closed. Click OK. And before I hit apply, I just want you to notice up top here, right? We're seeing all records on hold, open, and vendor spend. As soon as I hit apply, you're going to see another tab appear in the name of my filter called closed. Okay. So I have this filter now called close that is showing me just my closed records. The beauty of this memorized filter is I can leave the screen. So, hey, let's say I go back up to my dashboard and then I come back into my bills and adjustment screen. It remembers this filter for me so that I'm not having to go to a column and constantly be applying that filter for the data that I'm looking for. So here we already had some filters set up, some that are showing you on hold, open, and now we have one for closed. So these filters, if a user creates them, it's only visible to them. That way you're not cluttering up all the other users' views in the system. However, in a moment, I'm going to talk about company personalizations that you can do to a generic inquiry, where you can have an admin of the Acumatica application create shared or saved memorized filters just like I did, but they can push them out to the entire organization. So you can decide what's important for your organization to see, and you can set those up ahead of time for them through that feature. All right. One more thing I want to show you that's available to your users is Acumatica does have the ability to take all this data that we're seeing here in the grid and to create a pivot table out of that. So I created this pivot here called vendor spend, okay, that is looking at all my vendors' transactions, and we're grouping on the vendor, and then we're displaying the total of those transactions based on the transaction status. So what's really cool about these pivots is you don't need to take that raw data, dump it to Excel, and create pivot tables in Excel any longer. You can do that here, and you can have full drill down capability. So if I want to look at my vendor AA services to see what's open here now that I'm in my pivot view, I can go ahead and select that, and it automatically drills down to those transactions making up that pivot balance. All right, so real quick, I just want to show you how easy it is to create that pivot. So I'm back looking at all my records here. I'm going to go to this little icon that says ... and I'm going to hit Save as Pivot. And I'm just going to give it a quick name of Pivot. So to replicate what we were just looking at, okay, if I find my vendor name field, I want to say, hey, I want that to be summarized in rows. And I want my columns to represent the different statuses. So I'll make that my columns. And then let's say this time I just want to see, let's see, where is my amount? Here's my amount field. I'm going to go pull my amount field, and I'm going to make that the values so that Acumatica will sum up the amounts into these different status columns. All right. And then if I just hit my gear to take me out of this edit mode, here's my pivot table now that just took that raw data and is summarizing it by vendor across the different statuses. So super, super easy to create. This pivot table that I just created is only visible to me as a user. But again, if I'm an admin of the system, I can create pivots off some of these inquiries that I feel would be useful for everyone in the organization to see that has security to that screen. I can share that pivot out. All right. So pretty cool. So let's talk about some things that an admin can make as far as more company type personalizations. So an admin can certainly add columns, take away columns, just the way we did through the column configurator, very, very easily, to come up with a structure or a view that they feel would be the most typical view that a user would want to see if they were looking at this particular inquiry, right? So for example, let me just throw my vendor reference number over here. And I'm going to actually let me just shift this. I'm going to shift the Acumatica number over, and then I'm just going to pull my amount to be one of my first fields here so I can focus on that. So let's just say this is the view that I want all my users to see out of the box, all right? I can come in and I can set that up, and then I, as an admin, can actually share out the results of this generic inquiry. I can share this out to all users, or I can even do specific users or groups of users within the organization so that they have the default company view anytime they log into Acumatica for the first time. And then from there, your users could certainly personalize it a little bit more for them. So if I just hit finish, now this view gets pushed out to all of my new users. Okay, so that's pretty cool how you can kind of personalize that. Another thing that an admin can do is they can go into the generic inquiry tool themselves, right? And they can add columns that maybe aren't visible or even available through the column chooser, okay? They can also add sums to the column. So you'll notice here I have a sum on my open document balance. If there's other columns I want to sum, I can even count the number of records. That functionality is available here through the generic inquiry tool. So as far as adding a sum to any or a count to any of those fields, you just control that through adding whatever the aggregate function is that you want to apply right here to the field. So really quick and easy to do that. If there is another field that maybe what Acumatica didn't have available in the view, this is where you would go and you would add that. So you'd hit the plus button, and then you can look and see what fields are available. You could add that, and then that would be displayed in your view when you go back out. All right. So that's more of an admin type function. Now, there is this feature called conditional formatting. So if I go back out to just my inquiry view, you'll notice that some of these rows had some different colors applied to them. So we have 4 rows here on this page where it's red. I have one cell that's yellow. Acumatica allows us to apply conditional formatting to draw attention to the user's eyes to certain pieces of data here. So I applied a condition that says highlight the entire row red if the amount is open and it's more than $100,000. That way my eye directly goes to those, so I know they're open, they need to be paid, and it's a large dollar amount. Okay, this yellow cell here is a different condition that's applied, not to the entire row, but just to this particular cell where I said, hey, highlight the cell, the status cell, if the status is pending approval. Okay, so again, as an admin, you can apply those conditions, and as an organization, you can kind of decide what information is important that you might want to draw a user's eye to. Back over here in my results grid, it's just as simple as applying, in this case, it's just a switch formula, where it's applying that logic. If the invoice is today or less, and the status is not closed, meaning it's still open, and the balance is greater than $100,000, go ahead and highlight that in red. Okay. Now to highlight a certain field, we have on the field, you can go ahead and you can apply basically that same switch logic, where if the status equals E, which represents pending approval, to go ahead and switch that out and make it yellow. Otherwise, it's its neutral color. Okay, so really easy through some formulas here to be able to kind of apply that conditional formatting logic, again, to draw attention to your users when certain data elements are met or conditions are met. Before we jump off of generic inquiries and we move over to the report writer, I do want to show you one more feature that I think is super powerful when it comes to inquiries. And this is called the side panel feature. So you'll notice over here on the right-hand side, I've got this little panel kind of going down here vertically where it says vendors, bills and adjustments and details. When I click that, that's going to pop open this side panel. Okay. And based on the record that I have selected in my grid, okay, it's going to show me or link me to screens that pertain to this particular side panel. So this side panel is mapped to show me the vendor profile. So when I click on a certain vendor, it's automatically going to open up that vendor card where I can see all my vendor information. If I have security to this card and not just view only, I could certainly go in and I can change any of the vendor profile information right here from the screen without leaving that. Okay, so I added 3 side panels just as an example, so you can see the power of side panels, but another one is the actual bills and adjustment. So based on the bill that I have selected, it's actually opening up the bills and adjustment transaction screen so that I don't have to click on this record in the grid to open the screen. I can still kind of keep my inquiry open. And again, as I'm selecting a new record, it's refreshing that panel to show me that particular transaction. Okay. And then I did the same thing with vendor details. So if you're looking through your bills and adjustments, your open bills, let's say, and you want to see what's going on across the whole vendor, this side panel is created or designed so that the vendor ID is getting passed and it's showing me all those vendors' open bills. So again, I don't have to navigate off my bills and adjustment screen to go to that inquiry to see what's going on with this vendor across the entire account. So any of the screens in the system, if the record you have selected can be related in some way to that screen that you're looking to link to, you can add that here as a side panel. So that's pretty powerful, and it really, really minimizes the amount of navigation that your users have to take or make each and every day, because right from a single screen, right, they can kind of get the full picture of what's going on across the system, right? So that's going to be a wrap for the generic inquiry. And next, like I said, I was going to move over
Stacey?
just to, yes.
It's Rob. Lori's got a question in the chat before you jump off of this screen real quick. It says, can the pivot table show what is owed as of a certain date, more so for budgeting purposes?
You certainly could create a pivot that's maybe just showing you all your open bills. And then what we could do, we could create a filter here for due date. So you could say all your bills that are open and due, from that date or before, in case you're past due. It could certainly display that, absolutely. Any other questions, Rob?
That's the only one that's been posted in the chat so far.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so along with the pivots, you can add filters up here. So you're not just looking at all the data, right? In the case of that question, if you want to know what's due, obviously you would just be looking at the status of your open bills. So you could filter that to just open, and then you could apply the due date filter so that you could be playing with that due date and kind of play with those what if scenarios and look at all your bills due as of that date that are open. So you could just drag up your due date up here to the filter. And then when you're running your pivot, instead of showing all, you could say, hey, is less than or equal to, and then you could pop in your date, and then it would refresh your pivot for you. Good question. Okay, I'm going to jump over to an accounts payable aging report. Here we're going to kind of give you a flavor of what's available here using the report writer type reports. So Acumatica has its own native report designer tool that is embedded into the application. It's similar to using something like a Crystal Reports for anyone that's done report design in the past or even currently. It's very comparable to like a Crystal Reports or a SQL Server reporting services, reporting engine, things like that. It's very comparable too. As the result of creating one of those reports, okay, you're going to get a screen that looks very similar to what we're looking at here right now for any report that you want to run that's designed through the Acumatica report writer. So we're going to look at an AP aging report, and I'm going to run this in a summary format. So you can see just high level, there's some parameters that you can pass in to filter the data based on those parameters when you run the report. So I'm just going to say run, okay, and this is going to output the report. These reports, if you see these blue hyperlinks, that means that you can drill in to that piece of data. So in this case, we're drilling in here to the vendor. And I got my screen sharing. I just got to move this for a minute because my screen sharing bar is actually blocking that, so pardon that. So here is our report where we're looking here at our AP aging. Okay, now I want to show you some of the functionality where I can apply a parameter. So if I just want to look at AP aging across my vendor class services, I can pass that parameter in, run the report, and now I'm only looking at my aging for that particular set of vendors. I'm going to go ahead and hit my pencil again. So one thing that I love about this report designer is if I have filters or parameters that I'm defining and I'm running them based on those filters or parameters over and over and over again, I can take these settings and I can save them in the form of a template. All right, so I already have one called services vendor. So I'm actually going to switch this to product vendors, and I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to call this product vendors. So what that means is if I was to leave this screen and I was to come back into my aging report, and I select my templates, you can see now I've got 2 templates. So I can just quickly pick my product vendors and run it, and it's going to remember the fact that I set this to be a summary report, and I only want it for my product vendor class type vendors. So you can apply those templates again across any of these parameters that you're defining. There are also a lot of other different filtering options. So any of these fields that is contained within the report or the data set that's driving that report, you can add a filter again to apply that. So it's only returning that subset of data. So you can add these additional filtering options, again, save it so that when you come in, if these are common filters you're applying, you don't have to do it every single time. You've got these saved templates that you can just quickly pull that allows you to run the report. Now, the other thing that these saved templates allow for is if you have a saved template, you can take any of these reports and you could actually schedule them. So let's say at the end of the month, right, you want to schedule your AP aging report to go out to your executive team. So you can go ahead, create yourself a template, and then you can build out a schedule that you want that report to go out on. And the system will automatically send that report out based on that schedule. Okay, and then you can also define here who it's going to get emailed to and the type of file format that they're going to receive it in. So that's pretty cool how you can take any of these reports and you can set them up on a schedule so that they will go out automatically to an individual or a group of individuals. Okay. So that's another feature that I really like about the reports that were built by using Acumatica's report designer. So these reports, using that report designer, they cross operational, they even cross financial reports, trial balances. You can get a list of all your journal entries and those types of reports. That's all done through the Acumatica report writer. Now, when it comes to your financial reporting, Acumatica gives us actually another tool set to build that in. And this tool set is really designed and geared towards allowing accountants to be able to build and control what they want to include, and as well as the look, the output of those reports. So Acumatica has made it really nice and easy for these accounting type people to design their own reports here in the financial module through the row definitions, row sets, and column sets. Now, before I dive into those, I am going to just run one of these reports real quickly for you. I'm going to run a profit and loss period to date that includes budget information. So I pulled up that report. I'm able to select my financial period. I'm actually going to go back towards the beginning of the year where I know I have a bit of data in the system here. I'm going to go to January 1st of 2021, and I'm going to run that. Okay. You could see how quickly Acumatica is able to output these reports. It's almost instantly that these reports output. Okay. And here you can see where we're looking at our period to date actuals versus our period to date budgets. So in this system, we loaded some budgets for the 2021 year that we've added to this report that it gives us that period date actual to budget comparison, where we're then applying some percentages as far as where we're at budget to actual. Now these financial reports, again, when you see these blue underlines, those are hyperlinks. So if I drill into that, it's going to bring me to a general ledger detail report that shows me the breakdown of all the accounts and sub-accounts that make up that $12 million balance. I can drill in even further into the particular account that I'm selecting to actually see the journal entries here in Acumatica. So these are all the individual journal entries for account 4,000, sub-accounts 0, that make up that balance on that financial report. So again, you can see how quick these reports run. And when you're drilling down, even when it's large subsets of data, how quickly that the system drills in and outputs that data for you. Acumatica also has the ability here, if I wanted to create consolidated reporting, which this is, if I want to go ahead and break out that consolidated reporting into different units, such as branches or locations, right, within the organization. Or maybe this is a consolidated report and you want to look at this based off of your product line, we can build what's called unit sets. And over here, if I pick on this, if I select this grouping icon, you can see here that this report is based on a unit set that is allowing me to take this consolidated report and then drill in either by a company, a product company, or the different branches within the company. So you can see as I click that, it's filtering this data to represent only the transactions, right, for the retail branch or the wholesale branch. And then when I drill into that again, that data is going to be filtered for that particular unit set. Again, you can just see how quick the speed of all of this is. These reports I can take and I can export to either Excel or a PDF document. I can print them. I can email them. Okay. And again, if I save this as a template, I can take my financial reports and I can schedule them to run an email to certain individuals, again, on whatever frequency, monthly or whatever basis you're looking for. So again, pretty powerful, takes a lot of manual work out of the equation for these reports that you know need to be distributed amongst the organization. So I'm going to jump over, and I'm going to do this real quick because we are running out of time. I just want to give you a flavor for any of you accountants here on the call. I want to give you a flavor of how you can create and maintain these financial reports. Okay, so I'm going to go first into our reports definition. And I'm going to open up this report that we were just looking at. So this is the code, it's DPLB. Not sure where they came up with that, but it's the profit and loss budget. Not sure where the D came from, but here we are. So this report, okay, is made up of a row set that's been predefined and a column set. So every report, right, you have to build a row set, which tells you how you want to lay out your rows, which accounts are going to be placed in rows, any calculations you want to do, right, that's all done in the row. And then the column set tells you, okay, now that we've kind of determine what our row output is going to include, how do we want to display this from a column perspective? Do we want it to be period to date, year to date? Do we want to show actual information, budget information? That's all defined in a column set. Those are required. Rows and columns are required when you are putting a report together. The unit set, again, that allows you to run that report and filter it based on companies or branches or product lines. That is an optional addition to the report. So I'm going to quickly go into this row set here. And here's where you can see what the layout of a row set looks like. And don't want to focus on too much of the detail, but did want to point out here our sales data. So Acumatica is actually aggregating all that sales data that we saw on the report through the use of this single GL function, where we're saying, hey, show me all of my account class, my accounts that belong to the sales class, okay, and then expand them out on the report and show them individually. So through this single line of saying, hey, I want to, in line row 100, I want to include all of my sales accounts and I want you to expand them out here into individual accounts. That's all accomplished just through this simple function right here that we're looking at. Okay, so how you build out your rows is all controlled here through the row sets. There are some different, they call them types. I almost think of them as like functions in Excel, where there's some predefined logic in the system that will cause that row to behave a certain way. So this is where you would define your rows. Columns are very similar. So if I go into my column, here's where I can display the different columns that I want. Okay, so here we're showing our account descriptions. This is our period to date column. This is our budget to date column. I'm kind of controlling the data source through our ledgers. I'm saying it's actual versus budget. And then I do a calculation dividing those columns together to get my budget percentage. All right. So I know looks like there's a lot going on, but it's actually really easy to use, and it gives the accountants full control over how they want their financial reports to output. Okay. All right. So we're going to continue on with our conversation of financial reporting, and we're going to look at an Excel-based reporting tool called Velixo. Now, this tool is used to build financial reports as well as operational reports. Okay, so Velixo is an add-in to Acumatica. Okay, and the only installation that it requires is that you add in their Excel add-in here, which appears up in the toolbar. Once you have that installed, Velixo is basically just adding their own functions to Excel that is going to pull data from the Acumatica database. All right. So to get started, there is this connection manager where you go ahead, and I'm just going to go into edit. And this is how you make your connection from Excel to your Acumatica database. You give your connection a name. This here is the URL, right, that I was just connected to up here. So you have to give it your site name. My tenant that we're working with today is called Lunch and Learn. Okay, so that's our tenant. And then I just pass in my username and my password. Velixo's security piggybacks off of Acumatica's security. So if I'm in here and I don't have access to GL data, maybe it's just accounts payable subledger data, this product is not going to allow me, right, to pull in that financial data. If I only have access to a certain company or a certain branch, then Velixo, again, is not going to allow me to see data, right, that applies to a branch that I don't have security to. So once I make that connection, then I have the ability to use the Velixo as well as the Acumatica, the Excel functions to start building my reports. So let me go ahead and cancel this because I am already connected. Okay, so you can see here we have a P&L. Okay, this P&L is really based on just a handful of functions here within Excel and Velixo. Okay, if I come over to my column D where I'm pulling my actuals for these different operating expenses here that we're seeing, you'll notice that it's just using this function called account turnover, where it's building out a string that's pulling that data here from Acumatica. I am going to come up here real quick and I'm going to just go, oops, let me just undo what I did there. Well, it's not going to let me undo, but I want to come up here, account balance, beginning balance. So I want to point out when we're using these functions here in Velixo, it does give you these little tool tips that define what the function's for. Okay, so if I want to pull beginning balances, it tells me what the beginning balance is going to give me here. And then it gives me this little tool tip that helps me build out my formula so I know exactly what I need to include here in this string. So the first thing this is telling me is that I need my connection info. So if I start typing in my connection name, which was demo, and then I start hitting my commas, it's bringing me to my next piece of information that I need in my string, which is my ledger. And one thing I want to point out as you're moving to these different data elements that you need in your string, notice here how it's trying to write back either the best match or the possible values that you should be using for that particular piece here in your formula. And this is actually reading the Acumatica database. So in Acumatica, I have ledgers called actual and budget and reporting. It knows that typically when I'm building my financial reports, that my actual ledger is normally the ledger that I'm going to be using. So it's suggesting that as my best match. So I'm going to take that suggestion and I'm going to type in actual. Okay. And then I have the ability when I'm pulling my beginning balances to either pull up based off of a certain account class. Okay, and over here, these are the account classes, okay, for these particular rows. So I can reference a particular account class, or if I don't want to pull all the accounts that are a member of that entire class, I can go out and I can actually specify specific accounts or ranges of accounts, which is what you're seeing here in column A. So for our net sales, when we built out this function, this formula here, we referenced this A13, which is pulling all of my accounts that start with 4,000, and we're using those question marks as wildcards. Okay, so you can build out your accounts, and then you can include sub-accounts, branches. Again, if you don't want to do a consolidated type report, you want to limit this to a certain location, you can go ahead and add your branch, and then you can use your as of date so it knows which period. Okay, and in this case, we're actually linking to our financial period up here in column D8 within this report so that when we change this period up at the top, it changes all the data. All right, so that's a little bit about the function. Again, if I come over here and I click on this, you can kind of see how this was built out with our connection. The ledger, I've got some hidden fields. It's very common to hide fields when you're using this application. Let me just go ahead and unhide some of these so you can see that. Okay, so up here I have my ledger and some periods that I am using in my formula. So I'm pulling my actual ledger here. Okay. I'm pulling my class, which there is none. So now it's using my wild card over here, right, for my sales account, my branch, my from period. So it's using my periods up here. So it knows which period to output this for. And then I do have the ability to also include either just posted transactions or unposted. So that's something that this reporting tool gives you, is that you can and you kind of play what if scenarios where you can have some journal entries, or could even be, you know, accounts payable bills, depending on how kind of report you're building here. In this case of the P&L, you could have journal entries that are created, but they're not released yet. And you want to play some what if scenarios, and you want to see the impact of those journal entries if you were to release them here on your financial report before you go ahead and finalize those. So you do have that ability to also include unposted transactions if you wanted to. That is something that the financial report writer within the Acumatica application doesn't offer. So it's a pretty cool feature. Okay, so here again, we've just kind of got some reports, a P&L. We built out a quick 12-month, you know, a trend type report. We are able to utilize Acumatica's you know, chart functionality, where we can create our own different types of charting based off of the data that we're pulling from Acumatica. So this expense by account chart that we're looking here, this is running strictly off of this data right here. All we did was just create a pie chart just like you would in Excel using this data. So this is one way you can incorporate the data that you're pulling directly from Acumatica, right? Using the Velixo functions in with standard Acumatica functionality. We've built cash flow statements. And then over here, we just wanted to show you that this is not just a financial reporting tool. Okay, this actually can pull data from anywhere in the system. So when it comes to these two AR tabs that you're seeing, what we did here under this AR detail was we actually linked back to a generic inquiry inside of Acumatica. So you can see there's this GI function. So we linked back to a GI of all the AR invoices that are open, and we're displaying them all here in detail. And then we just use standard Excel functionality to summarize that data here into an aging report. And we also pulled in notes, customer notes from Acumatica that we've been making, so that if, hey, you wanted to use this AR aging for like a collections list, you can incorporate notes that you've had with the customer and recorded with the application. You can pull those here into the report as well. So again, we just wanted you to see the power of that. We can actually link to generic inquiries to pull out all of that data from your subledgers, and how standard Excel functionality can then pull that AR detail together here into a summary report. Okay, real quick, I am just going to show you how we can build a trial balance in probably 5 minutes here using this Velixo tool. So I already have my connection established. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to call this trial balance as of. Okay. And I'm going to come over to the side and I'm going to use this function where I'm going to pull in all the different periods that are in Acumatica. So I'm going to use the financial period list function, and I'm going to use my connection demo that I had set up. And instead of pulling all my financial periods, I only want to pull the ones, let's say, starting with January of 2019. Just put that in quotes. Okay. And now instantly, this just pulled all the different financial periods from Acumatica from January 2019 through current, right? And I'm going to eventually hide this. but I'm pulling this list in because I want to create a drop down that I'm then going to use to control what periods I want to view my trial balance for. All right. So I'm going to come over here and I am going to go to my data validation really quick, and I'm going to create a drop down list using my periods that I just loaded from Acumatica. All right, so that's done. I come back up to the top here now. I have a drop-down list. And for starters, I'm just going to put this to January 1st, 2019. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm actually going to hide this because I am done with this list of periods. All right, so now I'm going to come over here, and I am going to start building out my column headers. So I'm going to create a header for my account number, my name, my beginning balance, my debits, credits, and my ending balance. All right. And here's where I'm going to start using more of the Velixo functions. So Velixo has a function called expand account numbers. So expand account range. So I'm going to take this again. I have to add my data connection. And I instantly now have a full list of all of my accounts from Acumatica. If you scroll down, it's like my complete chart of accounts just through that single function, right? Now I want to go ahead and I want to add the account name for each of these corresponding accounts, all right? So I'm going to come on over here, and again, I'm going to say account. This time I want the account name, so I'm going to pull that function, and I'm going to add my demo connection. And then I am going to, instead of specifying account number here manually, I'm just going to reference back to the row that contains my account number, right? So there's my description for petty cash, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that down. All right. And I'm going to do one more. I'll do my beginning balance. So again, I'm going to do equals, and I'm going to do account beginning balance. Okay. My connection name, which is demo, comma. In this case, I want to specify my ledger. I want to pull actuals. But again, if this was a budget column, I could pull my budget ledger really easy just by specifying that budget ledger, but we're going to pull actual. Okay. And I am not going to use my account class. I am going to use my account number. So I'm going to hit my comma to skip over that. Okay. And I want the beginning balance for this account here. I'm going to skip over my sub account and my branch. You can kind of see how that's highlighting so you know which one you're on. And then for my as of, that's where I'm going to link back up here to cell A4. This is where I'm going to be setting my period all the time. All right. And I'm going to create that, make that an absolute cell reference here. And then I'll close this off. Okay. So here's my beginning balance for my petty cash. Now I can just copy that down. And I instantly have my beginning balances for all my accounts. All right. So in the essence of time, I'm actually going to copy out a couple of other functions that I have to finish this off here. So over here, let me just take out that. So there's an account total debits function. Okay. Again, building out that same string that was similar to the beginning balance. Now I have my debits. Okay. I can do the same thing with my credits. Copy that out. And copy that down. And then lastly, my account ending balance function. Okay. Take out my points here. So you can see again, count ending balance function. The rest of it really is the same as what we use for all the others. And then go ahead and roll that down And now I instantly, again, probably less than 5 minutes, we have a full trial balance that's pulling from Acumatica. Anytime the data in Acumatica changes, we have some different refreshes where we can do a smart or a full refresh, but it's going to automatically go out and it's going to recalculate. So here it is, recalculating, give that a moment. Okay, so that just went and it pulled all fresh new data down in the event there was any change. Coming up here to my date now, hey, if I want to see a trial balance, let's say for February of 2019, the data will just go back and it will just automatically refresh based on that. So pretty cool. So again, we hope you could see the power of Alexo here and what you can do using the combination of the Velixo functions in conjunction with Excel to create powerful reports across all areas of your organization. So that is going to wrap up today's presentation of the Acumatica reporting tools that are available to you. And I'll turn this back over to George. So thank you.
Thanks again, Stacey. Great job as always. And I hope that everybody, got a feel for the power of Acumatica, not only the standard functionalities, the GIs, the reporting, and then, the flexible report writer, which is built right in for financial reports. And then a tool like, for those who love Excel, the ability to use something like Velixo to, just create, any kind of analysis that you're looking for. Gives a lot more power, and again, you're not creating these spreadsheets offline because you're refreshing that data directly from your core database. So that being said, I'd like to open it up to the floor for any questions that anybody might have, for both Stacey or myself, and also if you don't have a question and you just have a comment on what we showed today, we'd love to get some feedback. Laura, you have any comments? I know you said it on the last one, but this one on reporting. Any feedback?
I think the Velixo is really what is going to be a game changer for us in so many ways. So I just I wanted to see I really want to be able to see more in depth of the financial part of it, and then. So could there could be a dashboard set up basically for like a what I do for the company for like my function. I would be able to see all of it as a CFO, correct?
Yes. Yeah, you could.
Okay.
Yeah, you could absolutely have a very customized. We could pull widgets from other screens. We could create some that are specific to, let's say metrics that you monitor on a day-to-day basis, whether they might be sales by department or something like that. So we could, you could literally go to a dashboard as your landing page and literally have your fingertips on, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 different data elements that are going on within the organization.
So
Okay.
Lori, I'm loading just as the out of the box controller dashboard that I'm showing here. That's giving you a glimpse into what's going on here, accounts receivable, accounts payable, a little bit more about that, down into what, your cash position could be. And then just giving you kind of just a high level overview of, your income versus your expenses, in this case by quarter and period. So this is just a flavor, right, of what we could do for someone in that controllership position.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody else on the call?
Hi, this is Sharon from All Star. Very nice presentation. There's a lot there. This is only the second one that I've sat in, so some of this still pretty new. One question, a bit unrelated, is within Dynamics right now, I use the fixed and variable allocation accounts. Is that still a possibility in this system?
Yeah, so inside of Acumatica, you don't actually have to set up accounts that are specific to allocations like you do in Dynamics GP, there's a whole allocation kind of feature or function that can utilize accounts that have balances already in them through, transacting throughout the month, that could then take those balances and allocate them out using various methods.
And do you choose those methods? Like I see by head count.
Yes. And you can even use, so Acumatica does have a statistical ledger. So if you were, capturing more statistical information versus financial information, where you needed to use that statistical information and calculations to do your allocations, you have that ledger that you can use to complete those allocations.
Okay, that's good. Thank
So
you.
it's just a little bit different concept. There's a statistical ledger versus using statistical accounts like in GP.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Aaron, I know you joined this. Did you? And I know you've had a little bit of experience with Acumatica. Was this helpful, this session?
It was, as always, Stacey just crushes making the details, seem simple. The Velixo was kind of mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I know anything about Velixo. Before this, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
It's so easy to use, especially if
yeah.
you're an everyday user of Excel. I mean, like you'll be building reports in less than an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And if you Google Velixo, you'll find that there are probably at least 100 little YouTube videos out there that provide guidance and tips and tricks on how to use the application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a member on our call, Rob Peterson, who actually came from a lot of your sides. He was actually a user, but he actually works with us. We have the privilege of having him on our team, and he came from an organization that was literally doing everything in Excel, from their invoicing to all the reporting, their budgeting, their estimating. And and they actually sent their invoices out monthly billing from Excel. And when he saw Velixo, the whole organization, and they were an organization that literally, sliced and diced their data up by region, by project, by manager, project manager, by team lead, and Velixo just allowed them to just, all those custom spreadsheets were now, pulling live from their live database. I know, Rob, if you want to, kind of speak up about, what a game changer it was for you guys, over at Colliers.
Yeah, thanks, George. It was, like George said, we did everything. All of our reporting was done manually for a $30 million company with 8 or so different product lines. And so we could only do the bare minimum reporting needs, financial reporting needs for the company. When we went to Acumatica and Velixo, that it just changed what we do and how we did everything. We could give them, the operators, so many more data points that they had never seen before, and then after that, then once they have some data, then it drives more questions, and we could build additional reports. And so we built these huge monthly reporting packages that the guys had access to and on the network. They would go out every month when we said the month was closed and open their file, refresh the file, and had all their data. So they used Acumatica somewhat from the operators, doing their time cards and things and some different reports, but they weren't power users of Acumatica. So they all knew Excel. So the Velixo reports gave them something they were comfortable using, and still had the Acumatica data linked into it.
Yeah, and one thing
Rob.
I didn't mention, just because we were running short on time, but as far as distributing these Velixo reports, you have the ability to create a distribution list. And just like some of the Acumatica reports, these Velixo reports can be emailed to different parties. You can password protect these files. You could add other attachments to it, customize, the body or the subject of the email. So a lot of flexibility for creating the distribution of these reports as well.
And one of the important things with Flexo that Stacey touched on with the GI is literally any field in Acumatica we can pull down through Flexo into an Excel report now. So you know, if you're field services, or if you're using project module, whatever you're using, whatever fixed assets, whatever module you're using, we can pull that down to any kind of reports through Flexo.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate the commentary. And any other questions from any of the folks that are still left on the call? And hope you enjoy lunch with the Grub Hub. But any other questions? If not, we'll close this session down. Again, thank you for joining in our session. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Stacey, myself, or any of the other Cal team members that you may have a contact with. All right. Thank you, and have a great day.